This is not your place." The words cut through the air, sharp, loud, humiliating. But the woman they were targeting, Elima, standing tall in her pale blue dress, stained with wine, did not flinch. Her skin was the perfect shade of ebony. Her gaze was steady, and her silence was more powerful than any answer. They taunted her, streaming her humiliation, never realizing that they would pay for it next. Because hours later, the same words, "You don't belong here," would be thrown back at Clara, the white woman who confronted Elima, the so-called gatekeeper of luxury, by her own kind. Stay with us. This story isn't about a dress. It's about the dignity, compassion, and independence of a woman of color they've never seen. Let us know where you're watching from. Subscribe. The next moment will take your breath away. The Atlanta morning draped Peachtree Avenue in a soft, golden glow, the kind that made the ancient oaks lining the street seem to whisper secrets. A gentle autumn breeze carried the scent of roasted coffee and damp leaves, and amidst the hum of the waking city, Elima Johnson walked with a quiet purpose. At 28, her presence was unassuming yet magnetic, her skin a rich, warm brown, her natural curls tied high with a beige silk ribbon. She wore a simple white t-shirt, faded blue jeans, and white canvas sneakers, their edges frayed from years of wear. A plain canvas bag hung from her shoulder, unbranded, holding just a phone and a few papers. Her deep brown eyes, sharp with unspoken resolve, betrayed a strength that her modest attire concealed. Elima paused before Maison Étoile, Atlanta's most exclusive bridal boutique, a shrine to luxury where dreams were stitched into silk and sold for fortunes. Its glass facade gleamed, framed by cascades of white roses, and a small gold plaque on the door whispered exclusivity. She smoothed her shirt, took a steadying breath, and pushed the door open. A delicate chime announced her arrival, slicing through the perfumed air within. Inside, the boutique was a cathedral of opulence. Crystal chandeliers cast prisms across ivory walls, and racks of gowns shimmered like captured moonlight. The air was thick with the scent of roses and wealth, and behind a polished ebony counter stood 3 women, their black dresses tailored to perfection, their smiles as sharp as cut glass. Clara Hayes, the tallest, presided like a queen, her blonde hair swept into an immaculate updo, her blue eyes glinting with disdain as they raked over Elima. Vivian Cole, with auburn hair and a smirk, leaned against the counter, while Elise Dunn, the youngest, flicked her brown ponytail and scrolled idly on her phone. Clara's voice broke the silence, honeyed but laced with venom. "I'm sorry, darling. You must be lost. Our gowns start at $75,000. We don't rent, and we certainly don't serve." She paused, her gaze lingering on Elima's jeans. "People like you." The words hung in the air, heavy with judgment. Elima's lips curved into a faint, unshaken smile. She set her canvas bag gently on the counter, its simplicity stark against the gleaming wood, and pulled out her phone. "I'm Elima Johnson," she said, her voice steady as a river over stones. "I have an appointment at 10 a.m. I ordered a gown 8 months ago, pale blue silk, pearl embroidery." She turned the screen, displaying an email with Maison Étoile's logo and her booking details. Vivian leaned forward, her whisper loud enough to carry. "She probably stole someone's email. Look at her, straight out of a thrift store." Elise stifled a giggle, her fingers already flying across her phone. She opened Instagram, started a live stream, and typed a caption. "Poor girl faking it at Maison Étoile." Comments flooded in, laughing emojis, cruel jabs. "Get her out. Who does she think she is?" Clara glanced at the email, then back at Elima's outfit, her lips curling into a smirk. "There must be a mistake. This is a private atelier, sweetheart." She gestured at Elima's sneakers, her nose wrinkling. "We don't do this." Elima's expression didn't waver. "No mistake," she said, her tone calm but precise. "I placed my order in February. I'd like to try my gown." Elise snorted, her live stream now at 500 viewers. "Elima Johnson? Never heard of her, probably a wannabe with a fake name." Vivian flipped through a tablet, muttering, No record of her. Typical. The comments on the live stream surged. She's delusional. Kick her out. Before Ilima could respond, the door swung open, and Margaret Voss swept in, her fur coat trailing like a royal train, diamond earrings flashing. A regular at Maison Étoile, her family owned half of Atlanta's luxury hotels. She stopped short, her eyes narrowing at Ilima. "Who let this riffraff in?" she barked, her voice echoing off the mirrors. "This is an insult to couture." Clara clapped, delighted, while Vivian egged Margaret on. Elise zoomed her camera, capturing Ilima's still face. Margaret stepped closer, her heels clicking like a countdown, and flicked Ilima's t-shirt with a manicured nail. "You don't belong here," she spat, loud enough for the chandeliers to tremble. Ilima's fingers tightened on her bag, but her gaze remained steady, a porcelain mask hiding the storm within. "You're making a mistake," she said softly, almost to herself. The live stream hit 2,000 viewers, comments screaming, "Make her cry." "Trash doesn't belong here." Clara crossed her arms, her nails tapping. "Time to go, darling. Let's not make a scene." She nodded to Vivian and Elise, who flanked Ilima, herding her toward the door like a stray. Elise's phone caught every step, her viewers cheering. As Ilima reached the velvet curtains, Clara called after her, "Try Walmart next time." The glass door swung shut, and the street swallowed her. Inside, Clara dusted her hands, victorious, unaware of the fire she'd ignited. The glass door of Maison Étoile had barely closed behind Ilima Johnson when the world began to feast on her shame. The Atlanta streets, bathed in the soft amber of an autumn morning, carried on oblivious, but in the digital realm, a storm was brewing. Elise Dunn's live stream, a cruel broadcast of Ilima's ejection from the elite bridal boutique, surged. Past 5,000 viewers within an hour, each click amplifying the venom. Comments poured in like a venomous tide. "Who does she think she is? Black girl in jeans at Étoile, laughable. Send her back to the slums." The screen glowed with laughing emojis and hateful jabs, each one a dagger aimed at a woman whose only crime was her presence. Inside the boutique, Clara Hayes leaned back in a velvet chair, her manicured nails tapping the armrest as she scrolled through the live stream's analytics. Her lips curled into a triumphant smile. "Look at this," she purred, turning her phone to Vivian Cole and Elise. 10,000 views already. We've gone viral." Her voice dripped with pride, as if humiliating a stranger were a badge of honor. Vivian, her auburn hair catching, the chandelier's light nodded eagerly, though a flicker of unease crossed her hazel eyes. "People love it," she said, her tone less certain. Elise, still glued to her phone, giggled as she pinned a comment. Poor girl thought she could play princess. The live stream's numbers climbed, 15,000, 20,000, each viewer a witness to Ilima's disgrace. Across town, in a modest Savannah apartment, Ilima sat alone on a worn couch, the afternoon sun slanting through a cracked window. The room was small, cluttered with sketches and fabric swatches, a testament to a dream built from grit. Her phone lay face up on the coffee table, its screen dark but heavy with notifications. She hadn't opened the apps, but she knew what awaited. A deluge of scorn, her image plastered across the internet, her jeans and canvas bag mocked in memes. She picked up the phone, her fingers hovering, then set it down. Her deep brown eyes, usually alight with quiet resolve, were steady but shadowed, reflecting a pain she refused to voice. Outside, the world was merciless. By noon, Atlanta Gossip had published a headline that burned across social media. Black woman's bold attempt to crash elite bridal boutique fails spectacularly. The article painted Ilima as a delusional fame seeker, her appointment email dismissed as a likely forgery. Twitter erupted with Howder Jeansgate, a hashtag that spawned thousands of posts. One viral tweet from an influencer with 1 million followers showed Ilima's silhouette against Maison Étoile's gleaming facade, captioned, "When you RSVP to a fairy tale, but forget the gown." Another meme photoshopped her into a discount store, her bag replaced with a plastic grocery sack. The comments were worse. She doesn't belong in places like that. Her kind should stick to thrift shops. The cruelty was a wildfire, spreading faster than truth. Back at Maison Étoile, Margaret Voss, the fur-clad socialite, returned for a fitting, her diamond earrings flashing as she recounted the morning's drama to Clara. "You handled that riff-raff perfectly," she said, her voice a blade wrapped in silk. "People like her need to know their place." Clara beamed, pouring Margaret a glass of champagne. "It's about standards, darling," she replied, her tone smug. "We can't let just anyone waltz in." Vivian, polishing a display case, glanced at Elise, who was editing a highlight reel of the live stream for TikTok. "This'll get us sponsors," Elise whispered, her eyes gleaming. "Maybe even a TV spot." But in Alima's apartment, the world's noise was a distant hum. She stood, crossing to a corkboard pinned with sketches. Elegant gowns, minimalist yet breathtaking, each line drawn with care. At the center was her masterpiece, a pale blue, silk gown, its pearl embroidery delicate as starlight. She traced the sketch with a finger, her lips curving into a faint smile. This was her truth, forged in years of toil in a city that often looked past her. Growing up in Savannah's poorest corners, she'd endured whispers about her skin, her clothes, her dreams. Yet she'd built Luxe Essence, a fashion empire worth billions, from a rented room and a second-hand sewing machine. Her identity as its founder remained a guarded secret, a shield against a world quick to judge. Elima turned to a small wooden box on her desk, lifting its lid to reveal a platinum ring set with a single pearl, a gift from a man who saw her soul. She slipped it onto her finger, the metal cool against her skin, and her eyes hardened with purpose. The world could laugh, could mock her jeans and her silence, but they didn't know her. Not yet. She closed the box, her gaze settling on the horizon beyond her window, where Atlanta's skyline shimmered like a promise. The storm of humiliation raged on, but Elima stood unmoved, a lighthouse in the tempest waiting for her moment to shine. The Savannah dusk painted the sky in hues of amber and indigo, casting a tender glow through the cracked window of Elima Johnson's modest apartment. The world beyond her walls roared with mockery, the Jeansgate hashtag a festering wound across social media, its venom seeping into every corner of the internet. Elise Dunn's live stream, a cruel chronicle of Elima's humiliation at Maison Étoile, had ballooned to 50,000 views, each comment a jagged shard. She thought she could scam her way into couture. Black girl in rags, know your place. Back to the gutter with her. The digital mob, faceless and relentless, tore at her image, their laughter a cacophony that drowned out truth. Yet within the quiet of her sanctuary, Elima stood unshaken, a lighthouse weathering a storm that would break lesser souls. Her apartment was a haven of creation, its walls adorned with sketches of gowns, each line a rebellion against a world that sought to define her by her skin and her simplicity. A single bulb cast soft light over a cluttered table, where fabric swatches and pencils lay scattered like the pieces of a puzzle only she could solve. Elima sat, her deep brown eyes tracing the sketch pinned to a corkboard. A pale blue silk gown, its pearl embroidery shimmering in her mind's eye like stars against a twilight sky. This was her masterpiece, a vision born of sleepless nights and unyielding resolve, a testament to a dream that no insult could snuff out. She touched the sketch, her fingers steady, her heart a quiet drumbeat of purpose. Across Atlanta, in the high, gilded confines of Maison Étoile, Clara Hayes held court. The boutique's chandeliers bathed her in a halo of light as she sipped champagne, her blonde hair a crown of arrogance. "We're the talk of the town," she declared, her voice ringing with smug delight as she showed Vivian, Cole, and Elise. Done the latest metrics. The live stream, now a viral sensation, had drawn 75,000 views, and Jeansgate trended alongside headlines from Atlanta gossip. Delusional intruder humiliated at elite bridal boutique. Clara's blue eyes gleamed as she read a tweet aloud. "When you crash a fairy tale but forget the glass slippers. Jeansgate." She laughed, a sharp cutting sound. This nobody thought she could outsmart us. Vivian, polishing a display case, managed a weak smile, but her hands trembled slightly. What if she was telling the truth about the gown? She ventured, her voice barely above a whisper. Clara's gaze snapped to her, cold as winter. Don't be naive, Vivian. She's nothing, a fraud in cheap sneakers. Elise sprawled on a velvet chair, scrolled through her phone, pinning comments. Wannabe got wrecked. Her brown ponytail bounced as she grinned. I've got brands DMing me for collabs, she crowed. This is our ticket to the big leagues. But Ilima's world was one of silence and strength. She stood crossing to a small wooden desk where a worn sewing machine sat, its needle glinting like a silent ally. She opened a drawer, pulling out a swatch of pale blue silk, its texture cool against her skin. 8 years ago, in a savannah slum, she'd started Luxe Essence with nothing but a second-hand machine and a heart full of fire. No investors, no mentors, just a vision to create beauty that spoke louder than wealth. Now, her empire was worth $12 billion, its minimalist gowns adorning the world's elite. Yet she remained a shadow, her identity a secret to let her work shine untainted by prejudice. She lifted a small wooden box from the desk, its surface smoothed by years of touch. Inside lay a platinum ring, a single pearl glowing softly, a gift from Alexander Grant, the man who'd knelt before her 3 years ago, his eyes seeing not just her beauty, but her unbreakable spirit. She slipped the ring onto her finger, its weight a quiet promise. Alexander, with his steady presence and unshakable faith, was her partner in a love that defied the world's rules. 3 days from now, they would stand together, and the world would see her truth. Ilima stepped to the window, the savannah skyline a tapestry of lights against the deepening night. The internet's rage, Jean's Gate, the memes, the headlines, was a tempest, but she was its calm center. She'd grown up amidst whispers. She's nothing. Her kind doesn't belong. Each had been a stone in her path, and she'd built a castle from them. Her phone buzzed, a notification from Atlanta Gossip, but she ignored it. Instead, she returned to her sketch, her fingers sketching a final pearl onto the gown. The world could mock her jeans, her silence, her skin, but they didn't know the power she held. Ilima closed her eyes, envisioning the moment she'd step into the light, her gown a beacon, her heart a fortress. The storm could rage, but she was ready. The Chateau Sérénité, a 17th-century estate nestled in Georgia's rolling hills, stood like a vision from a fairy tale, its stone spires piercing. A sky so blue it seemed to ache. On this radiant morning, the chateau buzzed with anticipation, its gardens awash in white orchids and lavender, marble fountains shimmering under the sun. This was the wedding of the century, the union of Alexander Grant, the 34-year-old titan of Grant Enterprises, a $50 billion empire. The guest list was a constellation of power, designers, editors, influencers, each sworn to secrecy about the bride's identity. Rumors swirled, a royal, a tech heiress, a hidden star. But no one could have predicted the storm about to break. Clara, Hayes, Vivian Cole, and Elise Dunn from Maison Étoile strutted through the chateau's gates, their invitations clutched like trophies. Clara, draped in deep purple velvet, tossed her blonde hair, name-dropping to anyone who'd listen. Elise, in a crimson gown, clutched her phone, ready to live-stream any scandal. Vivian, in golden silk, laughed too loudly, still buzzing about. Their viral, honored Jean's Gate triumph. They believed their presence was a reward for their boutique's prestige, blind to the irony of their guest status at a wedding they'd soon disrupt. The courtyard was a symphony of elegance. A string quartet played Mozart, champagne flutes clinked, and diamonds flashed on every wrist. Guests mingled, their laughter sharp as crystal, unaware of the ripple about to shatter their revelry. Then a hush fell. Ilima Johnson stepped through the gates. She wore a sleeveless pale blue linen dress, skimming her knees, its simplicity stark against the opulence. Her natural curls framed her face in soft waves, her worn ballet flats dusted with earth. No jewelry, No bag, just her hands clasped lightly, her deep brown eyes scanning the crowd with a quiet grace that made hearts pause. Elise spotted her first, her gasp slicing through the music. "No way, the jeans girl," she hissed, raising her phone. Her live stream flickered on, captioned, "Poor girl crashes billionaire wedding." Clara's eyes narrowed, her lips curling. "She's got nerve," she muttered, stepping forward. Vivian laughed loud enough to draw stares. "Is she crashing again in that?" The crowd turned, whispers spreading like wildfire. "Who let her in?" "She's nobody." Influencer Jade Perry, in a garish pink gown, swarmed with her followers, their phones out. "Did she get lost on her way to a thrift store?" Jade quipped, her voice a whip. A group of fashion interns, lanyards swinging, gathered near a fountain, led by a sharp-eyed girl named Tessa. "She's here to steal a gown," Tessa shouted, pointing at Alima's empty hands as if they held a crime. One intern flung a pistachio macaron, its green crumbs staining Alima's dress. Laughter erupted, a vicious tide. Elise's livestream soared to 50,000 viewers. Comments, flooding, "Kick her out! She doesn't belong here!" Alima stood still, her posture straight as a blade, her gaze unwavering. "I'm invited," she said, her voice low but clear, cutting through the jeers. "Check the list." Clara scoffed, waving a hand. "This isn't your place." She signaled to Marcus, a burly guard with a buzz cut, who approached, his hand hovering near Alima's arm. "Ma'am, let's go," he said, his tone flat. A wealthy heiress, Sophia Lane, in a molten gold gown, pushed through the crowd, her bracelets jangling. "She's scamming us all," Sophia shrieked, her voice silencing the quartet. She snatched a glass of white wine from a tray and flung it at Alima, the liquid splashing her dress, dripping down her legs. The crowd roared, phones flashing. Elise's livestream hit 80,000 viewers, comments screaming, "Drown the fraud!" Alima paused, wiping a drop from her cheek, her eyes steady but burning with an unspoken fire. Clara stepped closer, her voice slicing through the chaos. "This is a private event. Leave, or we'll make you." Jade's laugh was a lash. "She's embarrassing herself again," the interns chanted. "No place, no grace." Tessa threw another macaron, pink this time, its crumbs clinging to Alima's hem. The hashtag #WamBeigeGate trended, memes multiplying. Alima's silhouette captioned, "When you gate crash but forget the glow-up." Alima looked at Clara, her gaze almost gentle. "Ask for Alexander," she said, her voice a quiet thunder. "He'll clear this up." Clara laughed, harsh and bright. "Alexander Grant, you're delusional." Marcus grabbed Alima's elbow, firm but not rough, and began leading her toward the gates. The crowd followed, a pack scenting blood, their phones a wall of lenses. Elise's live stream surged to 100,000, her voice gleeful. "Here we go again, beige girl gets the boot." Vivian, lingering at the crowd's edge, whispered, "I'm sorry," her words lost in the din. Alima nodded, a flicker of warmth in her gaze, but said nothing. As Marcus guided her past the orchids, the jeers peaked. "Wedding crasher! Go home!" The chateau's stone walls echoed their cruelty, but Alima walked on, her spine unbowed, her silence a shield against the tempest. The Chateau Serenité stood frozen in time, its marble courtyard a stage where cruelty had just played its vicious act. The crowd's jeers still echoed, their phones poised like weapons, capturing Alima Johnson's forced exit under Marcus's grip. Her pale blue linen dress, stained with wine and macaron crumbs, fluttered in the Georgia breeze. Her silence, a defiant shield against the mob's scorn. Elise Dunn's livestream, now at 100,000 viewers, pulsed with hateful glee. "Beige girl's out. She never belonged." Clara Hayes raised her champagne flute, her purple velvet gown gleaming as she smirked, victorious. But as Marcus led Alima toward the chateau's iron gates, the grand doors behind them swung open, and the world held its breath. Every head turned. Alima stepped forth, no longer in her simple linen, but in a breathtaking pale blue silk gown, its fabric flowing, like a river under moonlight. pearl embroidery catching the morning sun in a cascade of starlight. Her natural curls were swept up, a single pearl pin gleaming like a crown. Her rich brown skin glowed against the silk, her deep brown eyes blazing with a fire that silenced the crowd. On her arm was Alexander Grant, the 34-year-old titan of Grant Enterprises, his black tuxedo tailored to perfection, his dark eyes locked on her with unyielding pride. The courtyard fell silent, a collective gasp swallowed by the weight of their presence. Clara's flute slipped from her hand, shattering on the marble. Elise's phone trembled, her live stream surging to 200,000, comments spiraling. "Who is she? No way!" Jade Perry's jaw dropped, her pink gown suddenly garish. Vivian Cole clutched her golden silk, her face pale. The guests, designers, editors, moguls, stared, their certainty crumbling like sand. Alexander stepped forward, his voice low but resonant, a thunder rolling through the stillness. "This is Ilima Johnson," he said. "My wife." The word struck like a bomb, splintering the crowd's arrogance. "We've been engaged for 3 years planning this day in secret, not for fame, but for us. Ilima asked me to keep her name from the press, not because she's weak, but because she's stronger than anyone here." He paused, letting the truth sink in, his hand steady on Ilima's. Her gown shimmered, a beacon of her resolve, her silence, louder than any speech. Alexander's gaze hardened, sweeping the crowd. "She is also the founder and CEO of Luxe Essence, the fashion label you've all worn without knowing its creator." Gasps rippled through the guests. Luxe Essence, the minimalist brand that had conquered runways and red carpets, was a mystery, its founder a ghost. Until now. 8 years ago, Alexander continued, his voice alive with pride, Ilima built Luxe Essence from a Savannah apartment, with no investors, no connections, just her designs and a vision. Today, it's valued at $12 billion, and she's taking it public for $1.5 billion. The crowd was a sea of stunned faces. Clara's knees buckled, her velvet gown pooling as she gripped a chair. Elise's live stream hit 500,000. Comments screaming, "She's the CEO!" "We had no idea." Jade's phone slipped, cracking on the marble. Vivian muttered, "Impossible," her voice hollow. Alexander's tone sharpened, a blade unsheathed. "And Maison Étoile. Ilima acquired it last week. She is its controlling owner." Clara gasped, a strangled sound, her empire slipping through her fingers. He nodded to a woman in a gray suit, Nora Banks, Ilima's chief of staff, who stepped forward with a tablet glowing. "Nora," Alexander said, "name them." Nora's voice was ice. Clara Hayes, Vivian Cole, Elise Dunn, for orchestrating and live-streaming Ilima's humiliation at Maison Étoile. Jade Perry, for amplifying the slander. Guards moved swiftly, silent as shadows. Clara screamed, "This is a mistake," as Marcus took her arm, her gown catching on a table, tearing at the seam. Elise tried to stop her stream, but a guard confiscated her phone, her 800,000 viewers witnessing her fall. Jade's protests, "I'm Jade Perry," faded as she was escorted past the orchids, her pink gown a fading spark. Vivian sobbed, her golden silk trailing like defeat. Outside, paparazzi swarmed, their cameras relentless, capturing Clara's mascara-streaked face, her torn hem dragging in the dust. Headlines flashed, "Maison Étoile manager, fired by mystery." Bride. Social media turned, Clara's followers unfollowing in droves, her name a punchline. Nora's tablet pinged. Maison Étoile's stock plummeted, investors fleeing as Ilima's merger loomed. Ilima stood beside Alexander, her gown a testament to her triumph, her gaze sweeping the crowd. She hadn't spoken, but her presence was a reckoning. The guests, once her tormentors, stood humbled, their phones lowered, their laughter silenced. Alexander squeezed her hand, his eyes never leaving her. The quartet resumed, its notes tentative, as the truth settled like dust after a storm. Lima's silence was her power. her grace a blade that cut through their scorn, and the world watched, awestruck, as a woman they'd mocked rose as a queen. The Chateau Sérénité stood bathed in the golden light of a Georgia morning, its marble halls reverberating with the aftershocks of Elima Johnson's revelation. The courtyard, once a stage for cruelty, was now a graveyard of shattered egos. Clara Hayes, Vivian Cole, Elise Dunn, and Jade Perry had been escorted out, their names branded with disgrace as Elima, radiant in her pale blue silk gown, stood arm in arm with Alexander Grant, her truth a blazing torch. Elise's livestream, frozen at 800,000 viewers, had captured their downfall. The internet ablaze with Dar's Beigegate, now morphing into Dar Elima Rises. But as the quartet's notes resumed, a new storm was brewing, one that would bury Clara's legacy in the ashes of her own deceit. Outside the chateau's iron gates, paparazzi swarmed like vultures, their cameras flashing as Clara stumbled into the dust, her purple velvet gown torn at the seam, mascara streaking her face like black rivers. Her screams, "I built Maison Étoile," were drowned by the shutters' clicks, each frame a nail in her coffin. Vivian sobbed, her golden silk trailing like a flag of surrender, while Elise, stripped of her phone, stared blankly, her influencer, dreams crumbling. Jade's protests, "I'm Jade Perry," faded into the chaos, her pink gown snagging on a rose bush, ripping audibly. Headlines flashed on reporters' screens. Maison Étoile staff ejected from Grant wedding and scandal. The world watched, merciless as their empires unraveled. But the true reckoning came at 09:04 a.m., when a single tweet from an anonymous account pierced the digital ether. It carried a grainy photo of a young Clara, barely 20, posing in a knockoff Chanel dress, her smile smug as she flaunted a fake Hermès bag on a long-dead fashion forum. The caption was a guillotine. Clara Hayes, Maison Étoile's taste arbiter, built her career on counterfeit couture. Clara falls. Attached were screenshots, Clara's old posts boasting of wealth she didn't have, her lies exposed. In pixelated clarity, the internet erupted, where Clara falls overtaking Elima Rises as users unearthed more, fake jewelry, borrowed cars, a life stitched together with deception. Inside Maison Étoile's Atlanta office, the news hit like a thunderbolt. Staff huddled around screens, whispering as Clara's past unraveled. Her followers, once 200,000 strong, plummeted by the thousands, brands severing ties in droves. Atlanta. Gossip ran a brutal update. From fake Chanel to fallen queen, Clara Hayes' hypocrisy exposed. The boutique's stock, already reeling from Elima's merger, nosedived, investors fleeing like rats from a sinking ship. Clara, now a pariah, stood outside the chateau, her phone buzzing with notifications she couldn't bear to read. She sank to her knees, the dust clinging to her torn gown, and wept, her empire reduced to a punchline. Clara's desperation clawed at her. She begged a guard, her voice hoarse, to see Elima. "Please, I need to speak to her." The guard, unmoved, led her to a quiet corner by the chateau's fountain where Elima stood, her gown catching the sunlight, her presence a quiet majesty. Clara fell to her knees, her sobs choking her words. "I was wrong, Elima," she gasped, mascara pooling in her eyes. "I mocked you, your skin, your clothes. I'm nothing. A fraud. Please forgive me." Her hands trembled, clutching the dirt, her arrogance shattered. Elima looked down, her deep brown eyes steady but not cold. She saw not just Clara's tears, but the weight of a life built on lies, now crumbling under truth's unrelenting gaze. She knelt, her silk gown brushing the earth, and spoke softly, her voice a balm. "I see your regret, Clara, but forgiveness isn't absolution. It's a chance to change." Clara's sobs faltered, her breath catching as Elima's words sank. Inside the chateau, preparations for the ceremony continued, but Elima's mind was elsewhere. She slipped away to a quiet alcove, Nora Banks at her side, her tablet dark but heavy with plans. "The merger's announced," Nora said, her voice crisp. Luxe Essence and Maison Étoile are one. The world's calling you a revolutionary. Lima nodded, her gaze distant, fixed on a future she'd long envisioned. She pulled a small notebook from a hidden pocket in her gown, its pages filled with notes for a speech, not of vengeance, but of transformation. She'd built Luxe Essence to defy an industry that gatekept beauty, and now, with Maison Étoile in her hands, she'd rewrite its soul. Back in the courtyard, guests murmured, their awe tinged with shame. Vivian, alone by the fountain, wiped tears, her whispered apology to Elima now a lifeline. Elise's confiscated phone lay forgotten, her fame a fleeting mirage. Jade's followers dwindled, her brand deals canceled. But Clara's fall was the loudest, her past a mirror held to her cruelty. Elima returned to the hall, her gown a beacon, her heart steady. The ceremony loomed, but her true battle was just beginning, not against her foes, but for a world where beauty belonged to all. As she stepped toward the altar, her notebook tucked away, the weight of her vision burned brighter than any crown. The Chateau Sérénité glowed under a Georgia sky, its marble halls transformed into a cathedral of dreams. The courtyard, once a battlefield of scorn, now hummed with reverence as Elima Johnson stood at the heart of it all, her pale blue silk gown shimmering like a dawn-lit sea, pearl embroidery sparkling with every breath. The revelation of her identity, CEO of Luxe Essence, owner of Maison Étoile and bride of Alexander Grant, had silenced the crowd, their phones lowered, their arrogance buried under the weight of her truth. Clara Hayes's fall, her counterfeit past exposed, lingered like a shadow, but the moment belonged to Elima, a woman whose grace was about to redefine an industry. The grand hall, its ceilings painted with cherubs, awaited the ceremony. Candles flickered, casting golden halos across crystal-laden tables, while white orchids spilled from every corner. Guests drifted in, their gowns rustling, their whispers tinged with awe and shame. Alexander stood at the altar, his black tuxedo, a study in elegance, his dark eyes scanning the room with a quiet intensity. Elima entered, her arm in his, her presence a melody that stilled every heart. The officiant, a silver-haired Frenchman named Father Julien, stepped forward, his robes whispering as he began the vows. Elima's voice, steady as dawn, promised to stand by Alexander through all storms, her words a vow not just of love but of partnership. Alexander, his gaze never leaving her, pledged to be her shield, his voice a low rumble of devotion. Their kiss was gentle, a seal of equals, and the hall erupted in applause, a tide of admiration washing away the morning's cruelty. The quartet swelled, its notes weaving through the air as the reception unfolded in the gardens, lanterns glowing like fireflies under a star-strewn sky. Elima and Alexander danced, her gown flowing like moonlight, his hand steady on her back. Guests watched, captivated, as the couple moved as one, their love a quiet fire that burned brighter than any chandelier. But Elima's mind was on her next act. She slipped away to a quiet alcove, Nora Banks at her side, her tablet now alight. Updates. The merger's global news, Nora said, her voice crisp. Luxe Essence and Maison Étoile are reshaping fashion. They're calling you a visionary. Elima nodded, her fingers brushing a small notebook tucked in her gown, its pages filled with a speech to change the world. By the fountain, Clara Hayes waited, her torn purple velvet gown a relic of her hubris, her face streaked with tears. She'd begged to see Elima, and now, as Elima approached, Clara fell to her knees. "I was a monster," she choked, her voice raw. "I mocked your skin, your clothes, your worth. I'm nothing, a liar who wore fakes to climb. Please, Elima, forgive me." Her sobs shook her, the weight of her exposed past crushing her pride. Elima knelt, her silk brushing the earth, her deep brown eyes soft but resolute. "I forgive you, Clara," she said, her voice a balm. "Not because I forget, but because I believe in redemption, but you must earn it. She paused, her gaze piercing. Luxe Essence Bridal needs a face. I want it to be you, not for your past, but for the change you can inspire. Clara's breath caught, her tears falling anew. Why? She whispered. Ilima smiled faintly. Kindness costs nothing, but cruelty has a price. The reception swirled on, but Ilima took the stage, her notebook open. The crowd hushed as she spoke, her voice clear and unshakable. Luxe Essence was born to create beauty for all, not to gatekeep it. I've seen this industry shun those who don't fit its mold. By skin, by wealth, by clothes. That ends now. Maison Étoile joins Luxe Essence to design for every woman, every story, every dream. Her eyes swept the room, resting briefly on Vivian, who stood alone, tears glistening, her earlier apology a seed of hope. To those who judged me, learn this. Cruelty builds nothing, but compassion builds everything. The applause was thunderous, a wave of respect that shook the chateau's ancient walls. As the night deepened, Ilima and Alexander slipped away, standing alone by the chateau's edge, the Georgia countryside stretching dark and endless. He brushed a curl from her face, his voice low. You changed the world today, Ilima. She smiled, her eyes catching the stars. We did, together. They weren't just husband and wife, they were a force, rewriting an industry's soul. Ilima's gown glowed in the moonlight, her heart a beacon. She'd walked through fire, not to burn her foes, but to light a path for others. The stars above whispered her truth. Compassion was her crown, and her reign had just begun. What a journey Ilima's story has been, from the sting of humiliation to the triumph of compassion. Her strength and grace remind us that kindness can reshape the world. What did you feel hearing her rise above the odds? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear how this tale touched you. Are you inspired by Ilima's forgiveness? Or her vision for change? And where are you tuning in from? Share your city and let's connect. A huge thank you for joining us on this incredible ride. Your support means everything. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more stories that spark the heart. We'll see you in the next one, ready to dive into another tale of courage and hope. Until then, keep shining.